And no matter how good the Chargers end up being, they have the misfortune of being assigned to the same division as the Kansas City Chiefs, and will continue to be there for the duration of the Patrick Mahomes-Andy Reid partnership. What was your take after visiting Kansas City, specifically on who that wild card, that X factor, that difference maker is going to be as they move into year 2 post Tyreek Hill?
Look, each of the last 2 years, they have had giant defections in the receiving corps. Obviously, you lose Tyreek Hill going into last year. Now, going into this year, he had a great security blanket in Juju Smith-Schuster. And so now you've got to again make up for, losing McCole Hardman, who just got hurt too much there. But I think the guy this year you're going to see emerge is Skyy Moore. A couple of people asked me, in the last few weeks, for fantasy football advice. I said, first of all, never listen to me because, we talked about how people stink. I stink. I'm terrible at fantasy football. My advice,
stink.
three quarters of the time is awful. But here's the reason why I'm very bullish on Skyy Moore. It's because that in this offseason, Skyy Moore found out where's Mahomes working out, and he just went there all the time. Patrick Mahomes, every time he worked out and threw to receivers, every day, had Skyy Moore with him. And last year was a little bit disappointing for Skyy Moore. He wasn't the impact player that he thought, that Andy Reid thought, that offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy and now Matt Nagy thought. None of those people were really happy, nor was Skyy Moore with his production throughout the season. But Mike, I was talking to Skyy Moore after the Super Bowl. Obviously, he had the huge catch, to help them win that game down the stretch against Philadelphia. And while I was talking to Skyy Moore, Patrick Mahomes came over and gave him the kind of bear hug that when you see it, you say, man, I hope he didn't get the wind knocked out of him. And there he is scoring the huge touchdown in the Super Bowl. But what I noticed is what Patrick Mahomes said to him is that, hey, listen, I needed you today. You came through. It was real leader words from Mahomes. And Mahomes told me when I visited camp, he is going to be huge for us this year. So look, I don't know. What does that mean? 85 catches, 1,300 yards. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be a lot better than it was last year.
And see, that's the value of that training camp tour, because no one is yet in the full and complete be secret, say nothing mode. And they're looser with their thoughts, and it's not a misdirection. When Patrick Mahomes says that during camp, he means it. And he's not going to tell you before the Week 3 game, hey, Skyy Moore is going to be huge for us this week. So I can see why you like talking to guys under that type of circumstance, because you are, I think, much better positioned to get a candid view of what is going on with a given team. So Skyy Moore. So Peter is basically saying, for fantasy football players out there, go get Skyy Moore, with the caveat of he stinks. And I'm surprised, Peter, after all these years, you haven't figured out how it works when it comes to fantasy advice. Most, not all. Matthew Berry doesn't fall into this category. But for most fantasy football experts, you just say it authoritatively, rattle off a stat or two, and forget about it if you're wrong. Because nobody ever, after a week's game, goes back and says, well, who's that a-hole that told me to get this guy? They just move on to the next week. That's the ticket to being a fantasy football expert. Never acknowledge that you stink. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.